Are there marketing tasks that need to be done for your company, but you just don't have the time or enough people to help? Do you hate managing social media? Are you curious about starting a podcast? This episode is hosted by the founder of GetLeverage.com, Nick Sonnenberg. Leverage is a premier marketing platform that pairs you with a team of experts for any big or small project that you want to outsource.
Welcome back to the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Sonnenberg, and I have an extremely special guest this week, my good friend, Dr. Jeff Spencer. Jeff has one of the most interesting backgrounds of any guest that we've had. Jeff is an Olympian, which we'll go into that experience because it was a really special Olympics that you were part of in 1972 in Munich. You have done Tour de France's. How many did you do?
9.
That's not normal.
One's not normal.
Jeff is a high-level coach for companies, for entrepreneurs, some smaller entrepreneurs, all the way up to larger companies like Bulletproof, Hitachi. He's worked with some notable people like Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, but it's not just limited to these elite athletes. It's really the content and the angle that Jeff is helping people from. He's really a cornerman for people that are high-level people that just need basically a cornerman. And one thing that I like about your content, which I would love to go into, is your whole goal achievement roadmap, your champion blueprint. You taught me one thing, which was you're not into goal setting, you're into goal achievement, which I thought was a really interesting angle. So anyways, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Well, it's such a pleasure, Nick, and looking forward to the conversation.
We met a year ago at JJ Virgin's event, and it was the last day, and we were just sitting at a table and just like, hey, who are you and what are you up to? And I think we were both just like, holy crap, this is like a conversation. And then we're like, actually, can we do dinner tomorrow night? And
I think we actually did that, didn't we? We did that, yeah.
I was like, man, it's a shame I'm just meeting you on like.
That's exactly how I felt.
But I really, we've developed a friendship now for the last year and that I really cherish. Let's start. The Olympics is really interesting because that was a special one. How did you get? So you were in the Olympics for cycling. How did you get into the Olympics? You've told me the story, but I would love to hear it again. What was your path to the Olympics, and what is it about what you figured out that you're able to transfer and teach other people with goal achievement? Because obviously you figured out a model early on because you've been able to achieve so much. So I'd like to have a little bit more insight. What is that model? How did you apply it at a young age and figure it out and kind of hit that first huge achievement of Olympics?
Well, when I was 7 years old, I really wanted to be an Olympian. I thought that'd be the coolest thing ever, just to march into the stadium. I didn't have any idea how I would do it. And then when I was 11, I showed some extraordinary ability on a bicycle. And I realized, well, that's how I'm going to do it. I'll become an Olympic cyclist. And I dedicated 10 years of my life between 11 and 21. And I had the best coach ever. I had fabulous mentors that crafted my mind, in my body and my soul to be able to perform at that level. And I did actually become an Olympian. I was a sprint cyclist, and I also drove the tandem in the Munich Olympics. The Olympics was, got goosebumps even thinking about it, just because it was such a pivotal experience in my life. There's things that you have to do to get there, 10 years. There's being there and competing. Then there's the aftermath of that. That continues really to this day. And I guess what I would say about that is that I learned several things about life and business and prosperity from the Olympics. Number one is that, winning big, it's not an accident. It's a very deliberate action that's created from very deliberate strategies that are consistently applied. And there were kind of two parts to this that I saw is that, again, I was a student of why is it there are some people that succeed that shouldn't? Why are there some people that should succeed and don't? This was always a puzzle to me. And so thinking about that a lot I discovered that the first thing that has to happen is that you have to become a prolific goal achiever, meaning that you have to consistently and predictably and repeatedly achieve your goals. And what I saw is that the method that most people follow, even today, is what I call the gap. It's like, we're here, here's our goal, there's a space between us and the goal. And the way we close this gap is that we have a big, hairy, audacious goal. The more the better. Big moonshots, of course, are always welcome. We have a detailed plan to the nth degree, and we'll outwork anybody. We'll work hard. We'll stay in the game. We'll remain positive. We'll believe, and then we'll try harder. We'll sleep less. And I found that led to a life of goal frustration. It didn't deliver on the promise that it was supposed to. And 90% of all the people that I know have got severe goal frustration, meaning that they know they're capable of more, but they just can't get there by using that prevalent model. And so what I discovered is that in that space and that gap, it wasn't a gap, it wasn't an empty space to get through. There was actually a process that lived there, and it had two parts. It had a preparation side and it had a performance side. First you prepare and then you perform. And over my 50 years in the advisory space, history has showed that there's 5 steps in each of those 2 different divisions. And when you follow that, or probably to say it more accurately, is that when you use the model, you follow it, most importantly, to see what the roadblocks that there are in your way, and you get rid of those to gain acceleration towards goal achievement. And what that does, that puts you on what I call the champion's ladder. And the champion's ladder is a legitimate black belt ladder of high performance. And it starts with becoming a prolific goal achiever. I can achieve the goals that I want to achieve. And then you can move up to top of field, you can move up to master, you can go to champion, and then you can become full potential player. So that was the discovery, because as an Olympian, I played at my full potential, and I truly understand what that means, and I know how to get there. So first of all, you've got to master the art, the most primal life skill, which is goal achievement. It puts you on the ascension ladder as a legitimate black belt, and then you can move up and ultimately become a full potential player. So that was, in essence, the path from there to now.
So did you kind of just figure out this goal achievement through trial and error for your own, through your own experience? Who were some of your coaches in high school and in college getting to the Olympics? Were they showing you some elements of what now is your goal achievement roadmap?
Yes, they did. My first mentor was my cycling mentor. He was a 3-time Olympian, 5-time national champion. And he just didn't train me he taught me how to win. He taught me how to be a thinking, thoughtful, soulful human being that then became an athlete. And that gave me a massive advantage, because he knew something about creating greatness that most people don't, and he shared that with me. So absolutely. My second mentor was really more of a life mentor. One thing I'm a very accomplished artist and have shown my art in the best galleries in New York City. And this person was a Renaissance man. He was a Victorian, born in the late 1890s. He was 76 and I was 18 when I met him.
Wow.
And when I would help him create his glass masterpieces, he pioneered a whole new way of doing glass art sculpture. And I was his apprentice. And during lunches and breaks, he would take me and he would play classical music, and he would play and read to me the great poets and the philosophers. And he would just fill me up on this stuff, because he said, you know what, it's like, I need to fill you up on this stuff, because this is what the soul needs. This is what crafts another way of thinking. This is what creates a life of distinction. And I owe him virtually everything. And I had the same thing in healthcare. Great people that helped me, that I learned lessons from, but I'm also a student of humanity, and having been in the high performance world as an advisor for almost 50 years, I've helped advise some of the most prolific achievers of our era get to where they are and stay there. So being in proximity to them, the advice that I gave them was either confirmed or not confirmed based upon the results. And what I learned from them and my exposure allowed me to be able to see that there is this alternative. The gap model, it doesn't work. It doesn't deliver. And it also taught me that goal setting is not goal achievement. Goal setting is a completely different situation, and so goal setting is what most people do. That's great. But the bigger question is, can you actually manifest that? And how do you build a legacy and a life of value and contribution based upon your ability to be able to create skills and master your goals?
Yeah, not to get off topic, but at Leverage, my company, we've had hundreds of people kind of come through, or thousands of applicants and hundreds of people that we've worked with. And it's really hard to find patterns in who will be a higher performing person that works with us. The only pattern I found is if someone has been an athlete to some degree, it seems like there's a strong correlation with work ethic and performance in the workplace, I found, because they come with a certain level of discipline and seriousness with problems that they're facing. They don't just back off. They know how to, they face it in a different way. So I do think that there's an athlete's mentality that does carry through into the workplace. That is what I found.
I don't think there's any question about that, because in athletics, you can't hide.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, good or bad, it's going to expose itself to humanity, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And the ones that can't handle it, they run for the exit. And the ones that are destined for bigger things are the ones that learn from it. They shake it off and they get back in the game, a wiser person, and they don't let that hold them back for going for more.
How much of your success in cycling and your ability to have gotten to the Olympics do you think is talent versus having the right mentors and coaching support? Like, for instance, if you were to have had the same level of coaching for taekwondo or fencing or something like that, do you think that you could have also made the Olympics in one of those sports?
Well, certainly there needs to be a tempering and a crafting of the individual, because like my dad was an artistic genius, could command any price for his work, but there's only one problem, is that he died homeless on the streets of New York City. So his genius and his will and talent and his effort didn't save him. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that have got a lot of will and talent to go absolutely nowhere. And unless we harness that and we have a structure to place that in to march us through the processes that have to go right to achieve, then at the very best, you're probably going to be a one-act wonder where you get a glimpse of what you're capable of, but you can never manifest of it because you don't have the structure to create that. I'll also say that, at the Olympic level, it's not a matter of what you want. It's like, do you have the raw capacity to become that? And if you do, well, then you can develop and become an Olympian, but you can't make a racehorse out of a plow horse no matter what you do. I myself, because I was not big enough to be obviously a professional basketball player or a 300-pound lineman, I was excluded immediately from those as being options. Right. Baseball, maybe, but I didn't have an exposure to it. Track, maybe. So I was lucky to have found cycling. I think the key here is that
speed skating, maybe
speed skating. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of crossover in that. Good thought. But I think our take home from this is that we really need to take stock of what our talents and our abilities really are. And if we have the raw substrate to become great because we have evidence of the substrate, then we need a couple of things. We need the environment to facilitate our growth and minimize the false beliefs that we have in the mythology that surrounds goal achievement, and also have people that can help shortcut our learning curve and avoid as many preventable mistakes as possible, which is our ecosystem and those people that we have around us. And then we need to have a goal achievement model that we can follow to achieve our goals consistently and predictably. You can't just make it up as you go. I mean, a lot of people think that you can. You just need to dream big and everything backfills. That's a great idea, but it doesn't, and is never really delivered.
Yeah, or you just put it on your vision board and it's just going to come true.
That's exactly right. Yeah, unless you have the skills, the tenacity, the infrastructure, the framework, the crew, it just isn't going to happen.
So, not to just keep harping on Olympics, I want to get into other stuff, but what was that experience like?
Well, first off, because as a welfare kid, I guess a couple things from that. I never had anybody tell me that I can't do something because there was no parents there to tell me anything. And I had the self-starting gene, which is a great asset to me for that. And I was tenacious and I took instruction really well. So that's part of what got me there. But, when you're talking about performing at that level, it kind of transcends athletics. It really becomes a matter of, can you get outside of yourself and can you take yourself to the rarefied air? A lot of people kind of get close to big breakouts and then they botch it by doing some predictable behavior based on fear of loss where they fumble the ball on the 1 yard line. That's really classic. Or when you're in a situation where you have to go all in. I mean, like all in, like there are no safety nets.
Yeah.
It's you against the ground. And
it's
having
like
the confidence.
He says, if you want to take the island, you have to burn the boats.
Yeah, in a certain sense, I mean, that's really true. I don't think that's a principle that you should live your life by, but there are certain critical situations where, you know, you really have to do that. I mean, I had that when I was in my first international competition. On the right-hand side was the Olympic champion. On the left-hand side was the world champion. And at that point, I had to make a decision. It's like, am I going to give these guys more credit than they're due? Or am I going to put everything that I have into this and they're going to have to prove to themselves and to me that they could beat me? And I had to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And I risk everything. I said, I'm going to put 100% of everything that I've got into this one pedal when the gun starts the event. And I'm going to give it everything that I've got. And if I blow up, well, that's the way it goes. You know, you have to get to that place. You have to learn to take yourself there because that's not normal. Human people don't do that. Most people get to a point where when they got to go all in, you know, they run for the exit. It's just too scary for them. But, you know, that's the boogeyman that holds us back, that we have to learn to muzzle and to step into our bigger future. And that was probably the most important thing that I learned, is to how to access that elusive 1 or 2% that's going to make the difference in my life.
What's the time where everyone, I guess, must hit a point where you consider quitting because it's just so uncomfortable, so tough? Was there one moment where you got the closest to quitting, and could you describe it and what kind of went through your head to decide, hey, I'm going to keep continuing with this, and you kind of get over that hump?
It was an interesting experience for me because what I knew from my observations is that when we get into that place that I call the daily grind, that's where you're just not feeling like you're getting anything back close to what you deserve from the time and effort that you're putting into things. It's just not going the way that you want. I realized that that's an essential part of every aspirational goal. And you have to be expecting it. And it's not something that you created. You didn't choose it on the other side. It's not because you didn't eat your greens, you know, or your kale leaf. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just part of what every aspirational goal has in store that we have to know that's coming. And we have to understand that that's where we're building a street readiness, kind of a street hardened, battle hardened mind, body, and soul that we can only get by being there. And the other thing that I observed is that if we learn how to stay in the game when we're under that stress, where everybody else is trying to talk us out of it, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get serious about this? You know, come on now. What about this dream stuff? Can't we just put that aside and get back to something that's real? I mean, when you start hearing that, which everybody will when we're in that daily grind, what I do know is that if we have the right metrics, we have advisory that confirms the fact that we're making progress and we're building critical mass in our skill level, that eventually one day you're going to get up and you can believe that you can do it. You know, I had that. And it's like, I knew that when I beat an Olympian in a race that I could do this. I could do it because I have evidence of that. So again, the one that I just can't emphasize this enough, Nick, is that, you know, if your goals that are highly aspirational, there isn't this daily grind, then you're probably not reaching enough. It's probably too easy of a goal. Expect it. That's actually part of what one step of my entire program is. It's devoted to the daily grind. What is it? How do you recognize it? What do you do to stay in it? And how do you get the belief? It's a critical issue. If you're going to quit there, most people, that's where they're going to quit if they're going to quit.
So you're saying that your trick or tactic for not giving up in like the tough moments is you're expecting the tough moments. So you're
100%, but you have to have advisory that's confirming to you that you're doing the right things to learn the lesson from this difficulty that will take you to the other side. Because a lot of people don't know that. They just are told, well, stay in the game. The fear is the problem. Overcome the fear. Try harder. Go to another $25,000 mastermind. You know, do all these things. But I think we need advisory counsel that can point out to us, are we really doing that which has to go right to get us to belief?
Totally. And as an entrepreneur, it is a grind, and
totally, man.
It's a long time before you get any positive feedback or what you're doing actually makes
sense. Love, man.
So
Yeah, if you want continual strokes, entrepreneurship is probably not the best place.
yeah, if you want pain, be an entrepreneur. So there, in your experience though, back with your cycling, there was never a time where you went to your coach and you're like, hey, I think this isn't working out, and that you guys had a pep talk about it?
Well, I needed interpretation of circumstances is what I really need.
I see.
It's like, as I tell everybody, I don't have any problem with losing. It's not a problem to me as long as it's not me, you know. So, there were moments where I was beside myself, and my coach said, well, let me point some things out to you here and what this really means.
Yeah.
You're frustrated. You're still in the game, which is a great thing. You haven't given up on yourself. So we just need to kind of look at what do we need to do right here to move this forward. So again, I feel like we need counsel in our corner. Now, let me be clear about something. When I say counsel, that's not somebody that's going to show us a technique, like a better opt-in strategy, a better conversion rate model. I'm not talking about that. Yeah. I'm talking about us as a human when we're in crisis. It shows us as a human where we are, what that means, and what do we need to do as a human to stay in the game, to learn the right lessons from this, to be able to complete the cycle, to move on, and to be able to achieve that goal. It's a different situation entirely.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are missing this corner. Yeah, I love the term cornerman that you have, by the way, because it's true when especially if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, it's not easy to find high level cornermen where you can, so I love what you do with that. And I want to learn more. I want to get to later on in this conversation in detail your goal achievement roadmap.
Absolutely.
Before getting into that, with your experience coaching some of the world's most famous high level people, Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, etc. Who's one that sticks out in particular that we could talk about, and what kind of pattern have you found with after all the years that you have been a cornerman to some of these super high level businesses, entrepreneurs, athletes? What are some common patterns that you've found?
Common patterns, it's a great question. Number one, it's really important for them to not have the right goal so much, because there's lots of the SMART goal. There's lots of SMART goals that aren't right goals. So they always make sure that they have the right goal to pursue. And there's a very vigorous vetting process that is used to determine that. They have a very solid team, full spectrum team, where everybody that plays on the team is loyal to the team. They are certainly in line and have bought into the aspirational vision for what the goals are of the team, et cetera. And they know how to play as team players. No one wins alone. You've got to have a great team that can do for you what you can't do for yourself. Mm-hmm. They're also very disciplined, meaning that they know exactly what they need to do to prepare well, and they know how to perform to be able to avoid the possible preventable problems and carry momentum forward. They're coachable. They always look for proactive advice. They don't wait for the Titanic to start sinking, to start to have people look at where they are and how things can be streamlined and how things could be better iterated. If something goes wrong, they make a course correction quickly. They don't try to hang on to something that has no future. They are very interested in leaving legacy and being examples to other people about what they can do to create lives of passion, purpose, prosperity, and productivity. They also play the long game. They're not in it just to be a one-act wonder or flavor of the month, but they have a long-term vision of their evolution and what it's going to take and how do we stay in the game. And they're very deliberate about that. I would also say is that they look at their strengths and they build a brand based upon their greatest assets. They don't try to follow the herd or other people, and they're fastidious in making sure that they have a solid infrastructure with PR, marketing, accounting, and all the other elements that are important in a successful, thriving business.
Do they also have a strong ability to visualize kind of what a future could look like in terms of like the detail that they can kind of see the future?
Yes. Well, that would be kind of a founder. Founders are the guys that see the castle on the hill. They don't know how to get there all the time, but that's what other people are for.
Mm-hmm.
And there needs to be somebody in the organization that has the vision for what's next, because, one act doesn't make a career. Those people that are able to repeat things of similarity that distinguish them as being unique are always the ones that prosper over the long term. And actually the idea of visioning future is always an ongoing process that they're constantly in the process of seeking next while they're completing cycles of action in the here and now. And it's actually a skill that should be practiced and should be made familiar to everybody.
So who most impressed you, or who are like the top couple people that you've worked with that kind of stand out in your mind that have impressed you?
Well, U2, the rock band, for sure, because talk about, come on now, they're like 70, and every year they put out a platinum album, and that's not by accident. They're meticulous in their preparation. They're 4 people that work together. They're very respectful and considerate of each other. Everybody gets a voice. Every consideration gets listened to. They've learned to work as a group, and to have a great group and a great team that stays together and prospers like this, all you have to do is agree 90% of the time. The 10% that you don't agree, you don't even think about it or worry about it or even discuss it. It's a moot point. So they've learned something extraordinarily impressive here from a team perspective. I've never seen anything like it. But when you see how they prepare for a world tour, you'll understand why they're so good, because they're so meticulous. These guys are the ultimate pros.
Mm.
I would say that I've never seen anybody work as hard as Lance. He would never expect anybody to do anything that he wouldn't do 10 times over. The work ethic, the leadership, the ability to step up and deliver when it counts is formidable. Just a couple things that he said I think are worth noting. He said, when you get a second chance, you go all the way. And he had life-threatening cancer, and every one of us has a second chance every second, and we really do need to go all the way to honor our talents and those people that have helped us. That's to me, a moral obligation. Lance also, when he came back from cancer, he said that pain is temporary and quitting is forever. Mm-hmm. That's an amazing statement when you think about it. Like most people, they kind of barter with life. Like, okay, I'll put in this much effort if you guarantee me I'll get this back. That's not how life should be done. There is no bartering. We show up, we commit, we do what has to go right to give it a chance to succeed. And, when
Lance got a bad rap for all the steroid stuff, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's its own kind of separate topic that we could go into at length, but I will say this about it, is that if anybody on this planet expects to learn their life lessons from perfect people, well, you're not going to learn anything from anybody, because it doesn't exist. And you can learn a lot from Lance because he did a lot of things really well that everybody can learn from. But if your judgments get in the way of that, then that's us limiting our ability to learn something of significance that can dramatically help us.
That is very profound. I love that. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's switch gears for a second. Can we go into your goal achievement roadmap? Because I want to make sure that we really nail that.
Well, thank you. That was truly my discovery, is that I realized that, again, in the gap, it's not an empty space to be trapped by trying harder, but there's actually a process that revealed itself that has like 2 parts. The first half is preparation, kind of like you do the homework and the test is easy. Mm-hmm. And any prolific achiever, they always make sure that they're ready before they start. And I didn't say perfect, but they don't just start and believe that the universe will fill in all the gaps, because it doesn't work like that. When we talk about preparation, we're talking about 5 different steps that produce 5 very significant outcomes that are absolutely necessary to achieve our goals consistently, predictably, and repeatedly. Step number 1 is clarity. We need to be really clear on what our goal is to make sure that we've got the right goal. Because when we have the right goal, we have harmony of mind, body, and soul. We're confident and certain. Our anxiety drops. And then we have goal focus. We can focus on the stuff in front of us to get stuff done, to move forward. We can see peripheral things happening, which are better options for our goal, and avoid preventable problems. That's why that's important. Step number 2 in preparation is motive. We need to understand our whys, plural, meaning that our whys are the reasons behind what we do. And why that's significant is that when we understand what those are, it gives us extra drive. It keeps us in the game at an entirely different level. But we do need to vet that appropriately and deliberately. Step number 3 is impact. It's really important that we look at the impact of our goal on ourselves, on other people, on our legacy, and on the physical world around us. Most people don't even think about that. And the reason why looking at the impact of our achieved goal is that when we're in alignment with it, then it gives us purpose. It gives us a reason to get up that's sometimes bigger than us, that keeps us in the game and keeps things moving in critical situations. You must have purpose. Step number 4 is mindset. We have to have the mindset, but not just thinking good thoughts, gratitude journals, affirmations, positive thinking. Those are all okay. But when I'm talking about a champion's mindset, I'm talking about the ability in real time, as the stuff of life surfaces, knowing exactly what to do and how to take action despite those things that want to hold us back. And when we learn what that is in the champion's mindset, it gives us courage, which is the ability to do that which has to go right in critical situations, to move forward despite our fear-based impulses. And then in preparation, we have one other step number 5, which is resources. We must have adequate resources, not perfect resources, time, energy, materials, team, etc. Because when we have a vetted resource inventory, it gives us trust in our preparation. And once we've completed all those 5 steps, then we're ready to actively start pursuing our goal. So that's division 1. Most people don't spend near enough time in preparation. They just think, well, I better get started now, otherwise somebody's going to butt in line, or the universe is going to take away my idea. Not true. When we ascend the performance division 2, this is where we actively start pursuing our goal. This is live ammo. This is where the blood flows. And the first thing we need to do is start the process correctly, to have a first sign of measurable goal progress that confirms to us that our goal aspirations and our preparation are actually working in our favor. That inspires enthusiasm and confidence in us, with our team, and people outside of ourselves.
So you need this feedback loop early on.
You do. You do, because in preparation, that's all theory. It hasn't been tested against reality yet. And why an early success is key here is that it inspires confidence. We are more confident in self. Everybody's more confident in our model and in our preparation. People on the outside want to help us because they now see that this is for real. And be mindful that a lot of people don't start well. And if they don't start well, it's not because they can't, it's just that they don't have the model to do it. That's why it's step 6 in the program. Then step number 7 of 10 is honeymoon. That's when we have our initial breakthrough, where we have that kind of initial success. And this is where people think, well, okay, well, that was easy, so now we just need to coast to the finish line. It's not true, because when we pull back too quick, and this is where startups always go off the rails, they get their big raise and they go out and they spend all this money on $40,000 speakers and Bentleys and all this stuff. And they take their eye off their schedules. They take their eye off policy. They start getting laxed on things. Things start to drift. They overspend. And all of a sudden they find themselves in a difficult situation that doesn't have to happen. And so the most critical thing is to make sure that we have early reality checks on our goal progress, and that if we need to make course corrections, that we do that early. And then step number 8, which is after honeymoon, is the daily grind. We alluded to that earlier. And all I can say is that's when you're going to be rolling the rock straight up the hill. And if you haven't screwed it up by not preparing well, if you haven't screwed it up by not having a set start procedure where you fumble the ball on kickoff, or if you haven't screwed it up by overspending when you have honeymoon euphoria, then the next place that you have the best chance of quitting is in the daily grind, where you're being tested and challenged by everything, boots on the ground, things aren't going right, your friends are turning against you, people are muttering behind their breath, there's a sense of mutiny within the team. I mean, all the stuff that's inherent with that, that's where we're developing a streetwise fitness and a toughness to be able to hit belief. And once we have belief, it's a milestone that takes us into step number 9, which is breakout. This is where we go from belief to knowing. Believing you can do it is like, I know I can do it, but there's an index of suspicion. But knowing you can do it is where you know with 100% certainty and confidence that you're going to be able to achieve your goal. And that's where you set for yourself a target that the team needs to achieve that's not the goal, but it's as if it is the goal in its magnitude. For example, when I wanted to become an Olympian, when I beat the existing national champion in the national championship, I knew I could become an Olympian. Didn't make me an Olympian, but it told me that I had gone from believing I could do it to knowing I could do it. Then that was game over, which is step number 10, which is finish the job. And I'll just say this about finish, is that the champions don't rush to the finish line. I know that's what people are told to do, but I've seen so many people trip before they hit the finish line. It's crazy. And it's because they're in too much of a hurry. So when you want to cross the finish line 3 steps beyond to make sure you safely get beyond the finish line before you let up. And those are the 10 steps. And just one other thing here, the place to start with this is that I've actually created a goal achievement roadmap scorecard where people can score themselves against their ability to produce the outcomes, and they can see where they're strong and where they're weak. And where you want to start with your weaknesses. So the first thing to do, you want to get rid of the pain point that's giving you the most misery. And when you take that assessment, that scorecard, it shows you what that is, and you can use the playbook and you can use the video to show you exactly where that is and what you need to do to get beyond it.
That's awesome. I hope that everyone is taking notes while they're listening to this, because this is some really good stuff here. I want to be respectful of your time and let people know kind of where they can find out about this scorecard, take it, where they can find out more about you. But before that, I just want to wrap up by saying you are a dear friend and someone I highly respect. And
back at you.
People, how do you mind sharing your age? How old are you now?
I'm 68.
So this guy is 68. And how many miles do you still ride on your bike a day?
Well, today it was an hour and a half. So however much that is, but I'll do that tomorrow and the next day as well.
Yeah, but in terms of, you're still pretty quick. So in an hour and a half, what are you doing? 20 something miles?
Yeah, probably. It's like, the average speed is about 18, and days I feel good or I want to.
You are fit. You have the craziest bike I've ever seen that you've spec'd out so you can kind of read while you're biking, and we'll meet up sometimes in downtown and you'll bike from Pasadena, or we were going to Abraham's event. You were thinking of biking from Pasadena to Redondo Beach. And you're not a normal dude. And also I have a lot of respect for what you do. We don't have to go into details, but I mean, you put your life on hold for 10 years and you basically saved a girl's life, because you adopted your daughter out of Colombia, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
It was a very bad situation, and you basically put your life on pause and saved someone. So you are not a normal person. You are a very special person. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before we end here.
Well, back at you. Thank you, Nick.
So where can people find out more about you? Where can they get this scorecard, and how can they start achieving their goals, not just setting their goals?
Great. Well, thank you for that opportunity. Well, first off, obviously there is my website, www.drjeffspencer.com, DRJEFFSPENCER.com. That's like the kind of go-to standard location to get the 411 on Uncle Jeff here. If you're interested, which I hope that you are, to get more information about the Goal Achievement Roadmap, please go to www.drjeffspencer.com/roadmap experience. So again, that's /roadmap experience. That'll take you to the landing page. And please take the time. I have a 42-minute video there that you'll see on the landing page that it will give you insights into why it is that people of immense capacity aren't able to create the lives of value and contribution and create memorable legacies like they know that they can create. I think you'll get a lot of information, from that. And of course, if you're interested in getting in becoming part of this, you're certainly welcome to do that as well right now, because the program is initially being made available. There's a very special friends and family consideration given to the price on this that will be going at least 4 times this in the future. So again, Nick, thank you for that. Another opportunity here is that those people that want to have a higher level of conversation about what it is that the champions in business, sport, and entertainment really do to become iconic, I've created the Champions Club, which is a virtual gathering that I've created and hosted that I am the facilitator of, where I share the secrets and I also discuss people's personal challenges and answer people's personal questions about what it takes to get to the top and stay there. And you can gain access to information on that by going to drjeffspencer.com/club. Other than that, I'd love to hear from you. My email address is jeff@drjeffspencer.com. And if I could just say one more thing here, Nick, is that please be mindful is that there's always room at the top for the best. That never changes despite what the world looks like. That never changes. And the other thing to be mindful of is that there's only, one of you in all of creation. And there's 7 billion people on this planet like right now. And there's been 350 billion on this planet since the first footprint by the first humanoid. And there's only one of us in all of creation. And each and every one of us has so much to give in our unique contribution to humanity. And I want that to be the platform that we stand behind to create our legacy and our life of value and contribution. But what I do know, what history does tell me, is that we just can't make this up. There has to be a structure where things happen on a predictable timeline to get us from where we are to where we want to go. And that's what I've dedicated to my life to. So again, thank you, Nick, for playing a vital role in this as friend, counsel, and supporter. It means a lot to me. And everybody that spends time with you is lucky to have that privilege.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Leverage Podcast. Leverage is an on-demand outsourcing platform that helps small business owners and entrepreneurs scale their business. We have a team of experts that can help set up marketing sales funnels, email marketing, podcasts, social media, paid media, and much more. Grow your business overnight with a team of experts you can trust to deliver. Accomplish more. Visit getleveraged.com.